Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from irishsportsdaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flamong, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uwayama, Jamie University, Jamie Nostradamus. It's Thursday. I didn't check, Jamie. I didn't check. It's Thursday, March 9th. We're going to be talking about the player interviews that took place yesterday for Notre Dame with the early enrollees, with the grad transfers. Finally got to hear Sam Hartman is a Notre Dame football player officially. He's wearing the Notre Dame gear. He's talking to the media. He's doing all that fun stuff. So we're going to talk about his comments. I thought his comments were pretty interesting, Jamie. He's a very insightful bloke. He had a lot to say. Very relatable, very confident player, you can tell. In terms of like relatable in his comments of like, wanting to keep playing football, right? Like you have an opportunity to play at a place like Notre Dame and you want to take it. And talked about the NFL, talked about Tommy Rees leaving and that sort of thing. And then we're going to talk a little bit about spring practice that's coming up. Thank goodness we get to talk about actual football, Jamie. So thank you everyone for tuning in. I know Rajon is in the show right now. Rajon says hi. Chris Wojak is here. He says morning. Glad we're finally on the verge of talking football stuff, field football stuff. So that's good. Sam Hartman looks older than both of you guys. You know what, Michael Parks? I appreciate that comment very much because even though he is old for a college football player, he is not old in life, right? I would love to be 24 years old again. That would be awesome.
I would take it.
Maybe we'd be out there playing, Jamie. So thank you everyone for tuning in. If you like what you hear, hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. Jamie, something that I've noticed is our views are not commensurate with the number of subscribers we have, right? So I think we are overperforming the number of subscribers we have for the views we get. And that tells me that not enough people know about this show, Jamie. And I think that's a problem that I've kind of noticed over time is like people love the show. When I hear people talking about the show, they love the show. But I don't think enough people know about it. And that's why we want to hit the like, we want to hit the subscribe button because that pleases the algorithm gods, right? The gods of the algorithms. It lets people know about the show and it gets it out there. And then more people watch it, more people engage, and we build like a whole thing, right? And everyone's hitting and hustling, right? And then we're building merch, hit and hustle merch. It's in the brain, Jamie. We're going to have hats and shirts and all those other things.
Also, good old word of mouth,
good old mouth, man. Yeah, tell your friends.
Tell your friends. I know a lot of everybody's got Notre Dame friends. Tell the people. Share.
Rajon's telling people. Yeah. I appreciate Rajon. I appreciate that. All right, Jamie. Yeah. All right. Sam Hartman yesterday spoke to the media, went in on the move to Notre Dame. And first of all, his comments on that, which I recommend everyone goes to irishsportsdaily.com because Matt Freeman transcribed everything he said, and it's a lot. And he gave, it wasn't the kind of the 1 or 2 sentence answers. He went in depth on a lot of things, right? And he explained his point of view, and it's really good read. And we can't do it justice here. So go to irishsportsdaily.com and check it out on the message board as well. But, he's talking about coming to Notre Dame and he's mentioning, the decision either go to Notre Dame or transfer schools or go to the NFL. And he made a good point. It's like, either way, I have to go to a new situation and I have to prove that I can come into a situation that is foreign to me. And I need to, connect with my teammates and I need to learn the playbook and I need to thrive in this situation. He chose to go to Notre Dame, talked about the dome, talked about the tradition, talked about talking to Josh Lugg. It seems like Josh Lugg had some good points to make in terms of, and did a good job of convincing him to attend Notre Dame. And so I thought it was pretty insightful, Jamie. And do you have any comment on the things that he said there?
Yeah, I mean, I seemed like a really thoughtful guy. I thought that, I mean, unsurprisingly, a lot of it was about like kind of betting on yourself.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's kind of was the big takeaway for me was that he's obviously doing this and he's betting on himself. And also too, I think with most transfers, that's betting on yourself. That's like the kind of like main theme of it. But I mean, I think it's pretty important that he didn't kind of make it sound all about himself. Like he knew like, I got to fit in with the team. I got to get to know, like talked about like his relationship with Tyler Buckner and some other things. And I thought that was, I pretty much liked everything he said. Like, I mean, who knows, everyone's, he is someone who's been in college for a long time, and he's had probably a decent amount of microphones put in front of him. In saying that, I imagine he probably didn't even have, even that's just like the Notre Dame beat and not like a, maybe a little bit more where like, you're going to get some national guys in there too, but he probably had more at that day than he's probably had on almost any day at Wake Forest. Right.
Yeah. Well, and plus like you do it at Wake Forest. Are there hit and hustle shows at Wake Forest? Like talking about his press conference, like
I don't think so.
That's just not a thing, right? Like it's just different energy.
Yeah. So I think that's just, I liked how he presented himself. I thought that, I thought he said the right things. I thought that he, was someone that I thought this guy seems like he's similar to kind of like how Jack Cohn kind of ingratiated himself with the team. That's how it sounded with Hartman. And frankly, what I heard about him too, is that like guys like him so far, like everything's good. So,
yeah. And you could almost sense in his answers, like you don't really know how you're going to fit in. It really is like you're kind of taking a chance, right? There is possible that you come in and you just don't gel with the guys. And it does seem like he has. And I think for him, that's really helps. Like he was talking about how like he felt like a younger guy because other guys were kind of talking to him. And it seemed like Tobias Merriweather was one of those guys like, hey, this is usually how we do it in terms of like weightlifting, like in the weight room or out on the field or something, like a certain route. This is how we do it. And he said, they were teaching him and he was able to kind of absorb things from the younger guys, even though he's an older player. He said he felt like a younger player because of that. He talked about Tommy Rees moving on, and basically, he said, something he's going to say over and over. It is what it is, which made it clear to me that he didn't like it. He wasn't a fan of it. But then he also said, like, hey, look, pedal to the metal. We move forward, right? Like it is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it. He made a business decision. Just like Sam Hartman made a business decision of sorts coming to Notre Dame. And so, he wasn't bitter about it. He said he had gone fishing with Jared Parker, I think the last weekend, right? So Jared Parker brings him over to his house and they go fishing, right? And then they have a relationship there. He said he's had really good conversations with Gino Guidugli. So, I think if there were rumors out there that Sam Hartman wasn't happy with Tommy Rees leaving, they were probably true to some extent. But like, it didn't seem like it ever got to the point where it's like,
or he was like, I'm out. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it never got to that point, but he didn't like it. Right. Like he signed up for one situation, the situation changed, but it seems like things have been mitigated, so far. And it looks like it's full pedal to the metal and everything's fine. So that's good. Go ahead.
Who was the first person who said it is what it is? I want to know who that person was.
You know what? Wasn't Bob Davey like super famous for saying that?
He might have been, but I don't think he was the first guy.
I don't think he was first, but I remember he said it a lot, and people didn't like it. It was a problem.
People say that when stuff's going bad, or like when they don't have anything good, or not when stuff's going bad, when they don't have anything good to say. It is what it is, right?
It is what it is.
It's funny because Adam Carolla, like the podcast guy, like / used to be Loveline, whatever, like Man Show, all those kind of things.
Yeah.
And he had this thing where he'd say, when people were talking about if they didn't really like somebody, they would say, well, Tommy's Tommy, right? Like, right? Like they would say that. And it really fits into the it is what it is kind of category. Yeah. Like, yeah, okay, he's not going to hate. I mean, especially Hartman can't hate on him because he's like, he made a business decision. Well, Hartman made a business decision. So it's like, it's pretty tough to hate on that. At the same time, this guy's like, come on here, man, we're going to make this great team. And then you're like, oh, it is what it is, right?
It is what it is. Yeah. It's fine. And look, I don't blame him, right? And honestly, like him even giving that reaction is very honest, right? Like, hey,
Yeah.
I didn't like it, like,
Yeah.
but it is what it is.
What is he?
Right?
What is
Like,
he supposed to say? Oh, I'm really happy for him that he screwed me over here. No, like, of
yeah,
course. Like,
yeah,
what is he getting? Yeah, I appreciate that he was he was honest but tactful about it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Michael
yeah.
Park says, I remember being 1 year older than my classmates playing basketball in 8th grade. I can't imagine being 3 or 4 years older than everybody else on the field. As an 8th grader, that'd be great. I think once you get into your 20s, though, like everyone's kind of stopped growing.
I mean, that
And
happens in college football all the time.
yeah, it just like the gap, right? Like as you get into your 20s, everyone has stopped growing. Everyone's in a college strength and conditioning program at that point. I mean, you're going to be a little bit more physically further along, but as a quarterback, it's more of the experience, like from the mental rep side, just like having been out there. I think that's his biggest advantage. Rajon is asking, refresh your memory, do you think Hartman would have been drafted this year?
I think he's probably a late rounder, but I mean, he's also could have been a guy that, and I imagine he probably would have done great in interviews and all that kind of stuff. But like, say, throwing at the combine, he wasn't going to wow anybody throwing at the combine or in an individual workout. And let's face it, that kind of stuff does kind of matter when they start seeing people sling it in person. They want to see arm strength. They want that kind of thing. Like that is like a big part of the in-person evaluation for quarterbacks, even maybe more important than a lot of other positions, because it's different than seeing it on film. Right. So I think he was like, they were saying like 5th, 6th round, but I mean, 5th, 6th round means like you're awful close to getting undrafted. You know what I mean? Like, so,
and it might even, it's like, that's the point where it's like, maybe it's better to be undrafted because you can pick someone.
Yeah. And I think too, that's the other thing. There's a lot of guys from Notre Dame, or there's, as we've seen, that have been like, he's going to be a late round pick that don't get picked. Right. Like that happens a lot because there's a million guys who get probably they'll go on day 3. Like there's a million guys who get that, and not everybody goes, right? Because everyone's got their different flavors. And then all of a sudden, instead of somebody from like a big Power 5 school, it's somebody from, North Dakota State that people don't even know about. Right. So I think that's something it's pretty frequent. And like, he just wants to put himself, I thought actually the best part about what, and kind of bring it back to what Hartman said yesterday, the best part of what he said is talked about how much he loves football.
Yeah.
And how much he loved football, and how much like he knows, like, you can't just go around and play with your buddies, whatever. Like he knows there's a chance this could be his last year. And frankly, that's kind of like the right way to kind of think about it, because that's how it could be for a lot of guys. Right. And, and now he gets to go on a different stage and gets to kind of see and test himself. And, I love that. I love that. Like, cause that's something that like, shows me he'll appreciate the moment. And, I thought that was something that stood out to me in his comments too.
Right. And if you know anything about his experience, like his life experience, right? Like he's experienced loss. Last year he had a blood clot issue that could have ended his football career. So he has an appreciation for that stuff, right? And so that's what I'm talking about when I say like that stuff. It's so relatable because it's true. You can't just say, when football is over, oh, me and my buddies, like, we'll go play. Like you can go to any park. People are playing pickup soccer, right? Pick up basketball, pick up anything, right?
Yeah.
You can't just go play a football game. Now, obviously, you can throw the ball around. You can do a little flag league or whatever, but it's not the same. It's different,
Yeah.
So, and plus, like, I can go play at Notre Dame. He's talking about tradition, all that stuff. Like, it matters, right? It truly does.
I wish there were some of those Point Break beach football games going on that you could just chop in. I mean, they need more of those.
Yeah. So Michael Parks is talking about how, Sam Hartman knows how to manipulate defenses due to the fact that he's very experienced and has the mental capacity. I mean, there's definitely nothing that is going to happen on the field that Sam Hartman hasn't seen before. He's played a ton of snaps. He knows what's coming. He's seen basically everything. All right, some other notes from players. I mean, Drake Bowen, just an absolute That guy, the fact that he's just like on campus now, like going through baseball too. He's just like a go-getter. And I'm so confident that he will end up being a good player at Notre Dame just because of his personality and the way that he approaches life, right? Like I had a chance to talk to him last year, and if you search for it, you can find the interview that we had. He just like he was doing a we did the interview from a hotel room while he was with his travel baseball team, and it's like I set up the interview with him, and he was like, "Yeah, we'll do it." I was like, "Well, do you want to wait till you get back?" He's like, "No, we're good. Like I'm in the hotel. I'll do the interview." Right? Like there's nothing too much for him. It feels like he's ready to take on everything, and like that's the type of person that thrives at Notre Dame. Yeah. So that was just something I took from him. Sam Pendleton, very impressive guy. Just like listening to him talking about. He wanted an academic school with a football culture. I think that really feeds into like everything that Notre Dame is selling. I was like, there.
Put that on the brochure, man.
I know this guy. And he's another one. He's been on campus for 10 minutes, so that's really good. Caleb Smith was talking about how, and Sam Hartman mentioned this as well. Like Sam Hartman saw him play, and he was like, "That guy, he's really good. I wish I had him on the team." And then here he is, right? And it sounded to me like Sam Hartman gave a little bit of insight into actually when his decision was made, because I guess Caleb Smith texted Sam Hartman when his thing was official, and he started to say like, "Oh, like we're going to join up together." But Caleb Smith was before Sam Hartman. So that was kind of, that he gave insight there.
I think it was before their bowl game and stuff. Yeah. So
And he can,
he probably don't want to,
he can make his decision whenever. I mean, and it was pretty clear too.
I think it was pretty obvious. Yeah.
But it's nice that those two wanted to team up, and now they can, right? So that's really good. I thought it was interesting that Caleb Smith spoke about himself as a deep threat first. That was interesting to me. He was like, I want to get vertical, right? And he said, I'll work in the slot and I'll work on over the middle, which is also interesting that they're selling him, at least, or telling him that you're going to be working in the middle of the field as a slot player. But he said, I can go downfield and I can be an explosive threat, a vertical threat. I thought that was interesting in the way that he views himself, because there are things on tape that I think that he's been lumped into the back shoulder guy, right? Someone who is going to be a possession receiver. He doesn't view himself that way. And so that's interesting. There's little nuggets in there that people were mentioning. Anything else from you on that front?
I think that Caleb Smith stuff because if you watch anyone who watched him last year at Virginia Tech, like he made a lot of contested catches, but like over the middle of the field, like in traffic kind of stuff. And I think those are important catches, especially because watch Sam Hartman's film and look how many throws he made where he had to make like great ball placement where it's like in between two guys where he's got to hit a receiver there. So that's good. The one thing about Sam Hartman talking about just the back shoulder thing and about how just practice. Like you got to just keep doing it. And that's something that, that showed obviously, with him and like a guy like A.T. Perry there, right? At Wake Forest.
Yeah.
And so those guys who really want to be great and are going to put in that time, I think that's going to make a big difference with a guy like Hartman. And just like, I think just, nothing that they said or whatever, but Adon Schuler going to be doing non-contact stuff in spring, which we knew about because he was going to get the shoulder, but the fact that he was going to be able to be full go other than that was, I think that's good. And Jay Greathouse saying he was going to be full go is, I think that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge because I think he's someone who can play right away. Man, I just, really think that the wide receiver is going to be like, man, just competitive at every spot.
Yeah.
At every spot. There's going to be some really, really good battles there. And I think that's going to be like all three positions. I think you're going to see like, it's going to be iron sharpens iron. Like they're going to be going hard. And plus we already talked about how corner is like probably the best spot on the defense. Those guys going against them. Stark difference from last fall camp where they didn't even have enough guys to go one-on-ones on some days. I mean, they're going to have a lot of guys on a lot of bodies, and it's going to be a lot of good competition. I'm excited. I'm excited about it.
So it's interesting too. To that point, I think Rico Flores said that he would be full go as well. Did I see that? Because I know he had an injury to his foot or something.
He had a foot. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think he said he would be full go as well, and he's also on campus.
Another guy who's got a chance to play.
Do we know if Cam Hart's going to be ready to go?
My guess is no, but like my guess is that he won't. It'll be like a non-contact similar thing.
Yeah.
You know what? I mean, not to just like totally pivot away from what we were just talking about, but man, I was just thinking as I was looking at the corner stuff for something I wrote on IC last week. Cam Hart was hurt the whole year because he missed the spring.
Yeah.
He hurt his hammy in camp, was like kind of not really full go, and then was playing with a bad shoulder and then had to move out for at the end of this, had to, sit out the rest of the season. I mean, that was the whole year. And I think he still played pretty good ball, like considering.
Yeah.
And I think if he's healthy, he's going to have a monster year. I think that I think is going to be something that people are probably down on him because of, he didn't have the kind of splashy of a year. And I know you've really hit this hard, Greg, about how good he was, the year before, and even really how underrated he kind of was last year.
Yeah.
But I think he's got a chance. The stock's going to be going up in terms of his NFL.
The numbers in terms of receptions allowed, yards allowed, and yards per attempt allowed were basically the same across the board. I mean, he gave up 50% completions last year. I think the year before it was something like 47%, right? Yeah. His yards per attempt are super low both years, like 6.5, something like that. It's a big sample size, right? Like we're talking 2 seasons now. The only thing is that in both years, he's given up too many touchdowns. It's not commensurate. He's given up too many touchdowns for the number of receptions he's allowing. He doesn't give up basically anything, but when so I've talked a lot about loud misses for lots of players, right? Lots of players have loud misses, and he's one of those guys. Like I talked about JD Bertrand, about how his missed tackles, they're really notable, right? And so those are the types of things that that kind of ding you from a fan standpoint. They always remember that one mistake, right? That cost you a touchdown, and those are big. But on just if you look at the full picture, he's as good as Troy Pride in terms of numbers, and completions and yards and all those other things. He probably a little bit more playmaking, but to your point, and I asked you because I think it's so important for him. I think he needs to be out there. I think it hurts him. It hurts him not to be able to practice. He does need to work on his craft.
Oh yeah. He's not polished, fully polished by any means.
Right. Yeah. He needs a spring to just get reps, just one-on-one reps against Caleb Smith, against Jaden Thomas, against Tobias Merriweather, guys like that, because that's the caliber of player he's going to be able to see. And he needs to work on his ball skills on that front. If you can't, it is what it is, right? So it's just that's just it's something unfortunate.
I think that think about that week 1 touchdown he gave up to Emeka Egbuka, right?
Yeah.
And I think we talked about, I can't remember if it was last week or earlier this week or wherever, but we talked about how it was just poor technique, right? It was, he just got caught, and it was poor technique. And that is something that you give up in camp, but you usually, you get it kind of cleaned up by that time. And he didn't really have a camp. Yeah. So that's kind of something that's kind of a way to think about it with him. So, man, I hope that even if he isn't able to do, hit and all that, it'd be great if he could still do some 7-on stuff and, maybe a little one-on-ones here and there. I think that would be helpful to him. I think he still needs it.
Yeah. Evan Olson asks, how would you characterize the early enrollees in terms of floor and ceiling? Assume there's a mix of high floor, low ceiling, low floor, high ceiling, hopefully high floor, high ceiling, and no both low.
It's a lot of ups and downs in those ceilings.
Yeah. So let's try to go through position here. Kenny Minchie is at quarterback. He's an early enrollee. He's on campus right now. So how would you characterize him?
I think with any quarterback you're talking, it's always like high ceiling and low floor because they're just some guys who are never going to play. And there's all these other pieces of it that even though, there's a lot to like with Minchie in terms of like, I think, some of like his touch and his accuracy on some of these, on like the deep ball and some of the things he does there, I think is like, pretty unique and great. But at the same time, you could do that, but there's so much more to being a quarterback than that. So it's like, I don't know, I don't know how to quantify with a quarterback, like what the floor is, because the floor is that he never plays and he's, like a lot of quarterbacks at a lot of places, or that he ends up going somewhere else. But I do think people who are suggesting that like, CJ Carr is the future at quarterback. He might be, he's great. Right. But like Kenny Minchie could easily be, a QB1 at Notre Dame. Like he has that potential. And I think he's a chance to be really, really good.
I think he's got the demeanor too. I do. He just seems to, there seems to be something about him to me. Just like, I don't even know how to quantify it. And I can't there's something about him that makes me think he could do well. It just in terms of being able to handle it. So not to say that other people can't. I don't know. I feel good about Kenny Minchie at the moment. All right, let's see. No running backs. Jeremiah Love is not early enrollee. The receivers. So let's say Jaden Greathouse. I would say high floor, low ceiling. I would say that both for him and Rico Flores. I can't see either of them being like all Americans, but it's like who's a good example of a receiver who it's like good player, right? Not great. I don't know, like senior year Javon McKinley, right? Like I could see that for Flores and or Greathouse, like something like that. I don't think they're super similar, but it's like, hey, good college player, right? Like we feel good about you being in the game. Not going to be a pro. Like I feel like that's the most likely outcome for both of those guys. What do you think?
I think I'd be very surprised if both weren't very good college players. So I think that's where the floor comes in, right?
Yeah.
But yeah. Do I think either of those guys are going to be high picks? No. At the same time, I think both could be pros, but I think that, I don't see the one thing with a guy like Greathouse is you're like speed wise. Does he have the kind of speed to be, truly unique? And he's going to be big. He wins contested. He can do a lot of things, but does he have the kind of speed to win? But the other thing is both those guys, and I think too, like there's something, if you're a good route runner and you can do it and you can win that way, that could take you really far away. Like that's how there's guys that like, I don't think DeAndre Hopkins, I'm sure he ran a pretty good 40 going into the thing, but DeAndre Hopkins at this time in his career, he's not the fastest guy anymore. And yet he still seems to get separation at the catch point most of the time. Right. So it's like, I don't know where the ceilings, I don't know. I don't think I see either of those guys being all American good, but I think, if you told me Jaden Greathouse was like a wide receiver 1 at the end of his time and like the best receiver on Notre Dame, I could see it. And if you told me Rico Flores had a TJ Jones-ish kind of final year in him, could see it too. But I think, even if you look at TJ Jones was a 6th round pick, you know what I mean? So that's kind of where I see it with both those guys. Very good. I think the odds are good that they're going to be very good players, but probably not elite ones.
Yeah. Anquan Bolden for Great House. I think that's a good outcome, right? And he like I don't know if he was like wide receiver 1 at Florida State. I mean, he was his last year, but that wasn't a good team. But like surround
he was like
him
a
with
better
guys.
pro than I think he was.
Yeah, like surround him with guys, you know, like, and he can be a dude. Rajon is asking, can they be as good as Skoranek? I think so. And just that caliber, right? Just someone who's like kicking around in the league, right? Like I could see it. Braylon James, I think that's a low floor, high ceiling situation.
Yes.
In terms of just like the speed, the athleticism, that has the high that's the ceiling there. The floor is just like will he ever learn the true nuance of the position? Right?
Yeah.
And you hope he will, right? There's no reason to think he won't in terms of work ethic and that sort of thing. But you don't know because he doesn't have it like the other two guys. So that's where that's at. Let's see. Who's on campus for offensive line? I know Pendleton's obviously there.
Pendleton's on campus. And that's it for O-line.
Okay. What do you think of Pendleton?
I like Pendleton. I think he has good feet. I think he's somebody that obviously he's a big boy already. You know, I think he's not going to be. He's probably a guard. Could play a little bit of tackle. I mean, is he ever going to be like a first round? He's not like a Blake Fisher, Joe Alt type. But if you told me that he had, he ended up being a 3rd round pick one day, or like, you know, a mid-round pick developing into that and like a multi-year starter, I could see it with him. That's where I kind of see his ceiling. Yeah.
I think Drake Bowen is a high floor, high ceiling guy. Honestly, he could be like, and in terms of, I guess, college football, like he could be Tavon Coney. Honestly, he really could. Just like, you know, 130 tackles, you know, like 15 tackles for loss or whatever. And maybe the speed gets him from a NFL standpoint. I don't know. It's just like, when I look at his college career, he could be like truly a great player in college, like truly great, like Notre Dame legend type thing. Like that's how I view it. What do you have any disagreements on that?
No, I that's how I kind of feel about him as well. And I just think some guys just have the work ethic too.
Yeah.
So the way I kind of see it is like a Drew Tranquil type.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing where it's like, I mean, this guy has a chance to be a very, very high level player. Tranquil, maybe I would say they're probably similar athletes. Maybe Tranquil, I think maybe probably end up being a little bit faster than where Bowen is good. But I also think Bowen is probably more of going to be a traditional Mike.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I agree with that.
I would just Westwood Banner Films, he asked about how does Braylon James compare to Merriweather. I would say from a ceiling perspective, I'd say they both are pretty similar. Like this is a guy like could be just a dynamic big play threat, just tall, freaky athlete.
Yeah.
You know, just different than some of the other guys there. And that's why you want to stack these guys in back-to-back classes.
Right.
Because I mean, if you get 2 of them hit, and then all of a sudden you're looking at maybe like Justin Ross and T. Higgins or something on the same team or whatever. That's what you kind of hope. But I mean, hopefully at least one of them hits big, and then you got somebody still pretty special.
I'm more confident in Tobias just because I know he's got the route running.
Yeah, and he's work ethic and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, I would say. But
what it could be is
ceiling wise, I think it's similar. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Adon Schuler. I see like Alohi Gilman. I see this is like a throwback, but like a Johnny Sanders, right? Like I see the type of player. Maybe Jerome Sapp, someone like that. Like just like not super dynamic, but like a rock, like completely dependable back there, like a fierce player. That's what I see from him. I guess that's high floor, low ceiling. Christian Gray.
Christian Gray, I think, has
super high ceiling.
I think he's high floor, high
he's
ceiling.
High floor, high ceiling. Yeah.
I think he's
there's
a guy
big
that
expectations there.
I mean, I'd be shocked if he doesn't become a starter at Notre Dame. And then I would be genuinely surprised if he wasn't a really, really good corner and a guy who plays in the NFL. And he might be a guy who ends up being like a first or second round pick. Like, he's got that kind of ability, right? So, that's kind of how I kind of see it with him. And Schuler, I feel the same way as you. Like, I just think, well, one, he's got a college body already. Like, he's a guy who's built to play right now. So he's somebody I think could be, I think he might have had a chance to get in the mix this spring if he was healthy, to be honest. And he still might have a chance to get in the fall because I think things are pretty wide open at safety. I would say, I think, his ceiling is probably like multi-year starter and an NFL pick. And then, with DBs, it's always dependent upon how you run and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Ray John's bringing up Jaden Osbury, who's also on campus.
Yes.
He didn't speak yesterday, so that's why he slipped my mind. See, he's the one I see as tranquil. I see him as tranquil, and I see Bowen as Coney. And look, that'd be a freaking great outcome, right? Because those two started next to each other. I think they could really complement each other's games. Attacking players, smart players, right? Like really intelligent, really aggressive, that sort of thing. They both know how to play the position. So that's how I see those guys. Something I wanted to bring up as far as something that Gino Guidugli said. He said he basically intimated that there's going to be a quarterback competition, and this is my thought on that. Is look, Tyler Buchner is going to get a ton of reps in the spring. Everyone has a chance to outplay anyone else, right? There's like Blake Fisher at right tackle, right? If Tosh Baker comes in and tears it up and outplays him, then he's going to push for time, and that's the way it'll go. You don't think that'll happen because Blake Fisher's really good. He's really good. And so he's probably going to play really well. And Tosh Baker over time has not shown that he is of that caliber, right? So that's just true. It doesn't mean, but so like, is there a competition there? No, but there's always a chance when there's reps. And I think that's true for Buchner as well. Like, look, and here's the other part about Buchner. This isn't a contrast between Drew Pine is an accurate quarterback who can generally put the ball where we want him to, when he want him to, etc. He doesn't have the upside as like a big arm or anything like that. But Tyler Buchner can't be a slightly worse thrower and still win the job because of his legs. Can't do that this year. He's going up against a guy who can make pretty any throw they're going to ask him. And he's going to do it at a high level. And he's done it at a high level, right? If you're going to beat him out, your legs aren't going to say. You have to be a better passer than him. You have to be a better decision maker than him.
Yeah.
You cannot put the ball in bad positions. You have to be very accurate, right? That's what it has to be. So look, sure, the competition's open, right? Why would they say it isn't?
Yeah, they got to say it.
But it doesn't mean that, he's not a better quarterback than Sam Hartman right now. So Sam Hartman will most likely win the job. That's just the fact of it, right? They're going to practice. They're going to practice. It's not like they're not, but then we'll see.
Well, the thing is, too, is it does no one any good to say, well, Sam Hartman's a quarterback. One, because you're basically like telling those guys that like, hey, your practice reps don't matter. Like it doesn't matter what you do. And the other thing is you're telling the team, what if Buchner comes out and is just better? What if Steve Angeli comes out and he's lights out or whatever? And you're like, I don't know, like, because, I think that was partially part of the problem with the Wimbush book thing, where to people in practice, they were like, oh, Book is better.
Yeah.
Right. But everything, it was like, Wimbush was the dude. He was the high rated guy. He was the guy who was waiting his turn, all of these kind of things. And everyone was just like, this is the guy. Like everyone thought he was this is the guy, right? He was on some like Heisman list before he even played, right? Like that's just kind of where he was at. And it just, I think that was and even though Book was probably better, they probably gave Wimbush the benefit of the doubt. And in the end, it probably hurt them a bit in that year. And then, yeah, I mean, eventually they made the switch, but it was like, I mean, they could have lost to Ball State. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like all that kind of stuff. So, man, Bernie Cordair is just on fire. Everybody is
Sam
the
Hartman's
greatest.
Gonna win the Heisman.
Yep. Sam Hartman's gonna. Osbury's second coming of Manti Te'o. Like what?
Let's
like,
go.
This guy is just.
Let's go.
He is on fire. It's on fire this morning. I mean, that it must be some damn good coffee. Like, enjoy it, man.
Yeah. So we have to wrap up early because Jamie has to get going. But something just to close it out. Like you brought up something earlier that this year the spring is going to be whatever. Maybe we get to see it and maybe we don't. But in terms of practice, there's going to be a ton of competition this year at the wide receiver positions. At the offense, there's 2 open positions at offensive line. There's a ton of talent in the running back room. You have a ton of young players trying to up and come at linebacker. You know, you have players. Foskey leaves, right? Like he leaves. Jason Adamilola leaves. Justin Adamilola leaves. Like there's a ton of open spots and young talent ready to come in and do it. Right. The receiver corner battle this year is going to be really good. It's going to be great for both. It's going to be great for both sides. Again, the running back position where I don't know how much work you even need to give to Diggs and Estime because you don't want to beat them up. And you have Jadarian Price, who you want to come back from an injury. You have Jabron Payne, who you want to get reps to, right? See what he's got. So there's a lot going on this year. Chris Tyree, like, what are you going to do with him? Yeah. There's a lot going on this year. It's going to be a really good spring where people have roles, but there's a lot of playing time to be divvied out this year. It's going to be really intriguing. There's going to be a lot of storylines to follow this year.
Yeah. And I think, I think more so than last year where there was kind of unknowns and maybe some of the guys that were like freshmen. I mean, you knew that like guys like Gobera and Ford weren't going to be quite ready yet. Right. So, but now it's like, well, they might not, that they just might not need them to ready, but what if they're better than the other guys? Like if you tell me like Aiden Gobera is better than Nana Osafo-Mensah, like I wouldn't be surprised at all right now. And frankly, I want to see what they do in terms of like, I think the previous staff and a lot of college football teams do this where you get stuck in like it's your turn now. And now it's your turn, whatever. Right. And now I want to see, because it's still a new staff, like for the most part. And obviously there are brand new people, but it's still new staff for the most part. And now you kind of get to see where it's like, okay, like this guy's just better. We got to play this guy. And I want to see where that kind of falls out. And I'm excited. I'm excited about it.
Yeah. All right. So we'll leave it there once again, because Jamie's got to get going. So check us out on irishsportsdaily.com. Check out all of Jamie's got 6 thoughts on a Thursday that came up. Hit the like button, hit subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Subscribe to our podcast links, right? So you can listen to this back if you missed something or you can't watch on YouTube or whatever because of the ads. Follow us on our podcast links. I've put links in the description of the show. So you're going to want to check that out. And if we're not pressed to do a show in the next few days because of some breaking news or whatever, hopefully there isn't, because that would be bad, I think. So that would probably be very bad. So if you haven't done so, subscribe to our stuff. Really appreciate it. Hit the like, hit subscribe, all that stuff. So, all right. Have a good weekend, everybody. And we will catch you again next week.